Hello everyone, and welcome to another My Favorite Things, basically an excuse to ramble on about my favorite movies and games. This week, I was feeling a Christopher Nolan movie as I await October when I can talk about some horror. Be sure to stick around for that by slapping that subscribe button. So for this week, I was a bit stuck on whether to do Inception or Memento. Both are fantastic films, but I enjoy Inception more, and so will you, so here we are. Wait, we can't start the analysis yet. This episode needs to be in another My Favorite Things, inside another episode, all that inside that Jurassic NATO spoof I did a few weeks ago. And every picture change needs a... Let's get started. So why has Inception been praised so much? Is it really all that confusing? What is the movie even trying to get across? Does it even have something to express, or has it gone too many layers deep to make any kind of sense? And why is this Nolan classic one of my favorite movies? Let's take a look. For some reason, a lot of people don't understand Inception, but I don't know why. I guess I'm showing my age here, but even as a preteen, I got it on my first viewing. Does it confuse a lot of people, or is that something that's said but isn't necessarily true? If you don't understand, then I'll be happy to clear a few things up for you. The story revolves around Dom Cobb, a man who has a machine that allows you to truly experience dreams. It's extremely lucid dreaming. Multiple people can access the same dreams through this machine and share dreaming. After being accused of murdering his wife, Cobb hides out around the world. As a job, him and his team perform extraction, using the machine to enter people's dreams and extract their secrets. They do this to individuals with important information until he's confronted by businessman Saito, who promises to arrange his safe return to America if he performs Inception on one of his competitors, Robert Fisher. After his father's death, Fisher's to inherit his dad's business empire. Saito fears he'll be outcompeted, so he wants Cobb to convince Fisher to break up his father's company through Inception. Probably whenever someone thinks of Inception, they think of a dream within a dream and so on, Rexception for example. But what Inception really is planting an idea in someone's mind through dreams, whatever idea that may be. It needs to be planted so far deep into the subconscious that the dreamer believes they thought it. If not, then the idea would be rejected because the Inceptionee would know they didn't actually think it. So it's the exact opposite of extraction, but a whole lot more difficult. Cobb and his team try to perform Inception on Fisher to break up his business. So they study Fisher to look for ways to plant this idea and have it grow naturally in his head. Inception becomes a heist movie, but oddly, they're trying to implant something instead of steal something. One of the reasons why walking into a Nolan film is a great experience is because of how the stories are told in such a unique way. Take the aforementioned Memento. The whole thing's told backwards as a man who can't create memories tries to track down his wife's killer with notes tattooed onto his body. Inception is told far more chronologically, but with the whole Inception thing going on. You have a situation happening in each layer for the characters to overcome long enough to get the job done. So you're following multiple versions of them simultaneously, but their time moves at different paces, very similarly to Dunkirk, because dreams feel longer than they actually are. 5 minutes in reality translates to an hour in a dream, and this compounds with each layer of dreaming. This format does amazingly for the movie by the climax, as there's so much tension and stakes in all the layers compounding on one another. So the story is very original, leads to a lot of really intense scenes from the action and characters, and like a lot of Nolan's films, it challenges the mind and makes you think outside the box. I already mentioned a few of them, but let's talk about the characters. Our protagonists are Dom Cobb, Robert Fisher, Eames, Arthur and Ariadne, Maul, and Saito. Dreams. Cobb, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, is the main character in Inception. He's desperate to get to America to finally see his children again after fleeing the law after his alleged murder of his wife Maul. I just rhymed. His motivations are understandable and are what push him to gather a team to perform the nearly impossible task of Inception. I'll talk more about Cobb and his struggles with Maul in the next segment. I guess going in order of dreams, next is Robert. He's the one Inception is being performed on in order to convince him to break up his father's empire. Eames realizes that the most effective point of attack on his subconscious would be the relationship between him and his father. Their strained relationship becomes the target of the team. Robert's father was always cold and uncaring with him, so he grew up trying to win his father's respect and approval. Literally, the last word Fisher heard from his dying father was disappointed. But the team takes advantage of this by planting the idea 3 layers down that his dad's not disappointed with him, but that Robert tried being like him. So the one way to make his father proud would be to stop trying to be him and move on from the company. It's brilliant, yet so awful. They literally trick this guy into believing that his dad cared about him this whole time. These people are crazy. Next is Eames. This is the only time Tom Hardy actually gets to show his face in a Nolan movie. Does Nolan just think he's ugly or something? Why does he keep making him wear a mask? Anyways, Eames studies the different players involved. In this case, Robert and his father. His information helps the team find aspects of the character they can manipulate, and he himself uses it to manifest himself into anybody he needs to be to further progress. Arthur, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, is Cobb's closest man on the team. Besides being the right-hand man, he is also in charge of much of the planning and preparation for each mission, but he fails miserably because he didn't realize that Fisher's had mental training, so his projections are armed to the teeth. Projections are what the mind uses to populate the dream world, but since Fisher's had mental training, they now have guns to defend the subconscious. Ellen Page plays Ariadne, the architect of the dreams. She designs the scenery and outline of the area in which the dream takes place. Ariadne gets introduced to the team and becomes a vital character as we see her learn more and more about these abstract concepts. As she learns, we the audience learn with her. Without her, then there wouldn't be much context once everything gets underway, and then we'd be really confused. Ariadne is also the one who gets introduced to what Cobb is going through in his dilemma with Maul. Maul, or Cobb's perception of her, is the true antagonist of the film, so I'll discuss her role in the movie in the next segment. And that leaves us with Saito, the Japanese businessman competing with Fisher, played by Ken Watanabe. After a failed extraction attempt on him, Saito gives Cobb the proposal to get him home. Even though he'll help the protagonist, we see that he's a ruthless businessman. Letting the old architect be killed, he commits extramarital affairs, and of course goes as far as to commit Inception on a competitor. Although he doesn't have a role in the act of Inception, he goes along to make sure the job gets done. Saito dies on the mission, but because everyone's under heavy sedatives, they can't wake up, so death causes them to go into limbo. After all this, we see him change a bit. He honors the arrangement with Cobb, and he appears to be a little more humble after his decades of limbo. There's also Yusuf, who makes the sedatives and drives the van, but he doesn't get much screen time, and he doesn't really fit in the spelling, so I'm just gonna cut him out. Again, the main antagonist in Inception is Dom Cobb's late wife Maul. She and Dom used to live together in a dream world. They practically spent their entire lives together in the machine, except they were only living in a dream, where they can create and build anything with their minds. This is how Cobb knew Inception to be possible, because he already performed it on his wife. Except the idea planted in her head was that the made-up world they lived in was real, and that the actual world was just a dream. This idea quickly grew and evolved in Maul's mind, to the point that she even believed their kids were just projections created by the subconscious to populate the world. However, Maul knows that to exit a dream, you need to either get dunked while asleep, wait for the timer on the machine to end, or die. Since the first two weren't gonna happen, she kills herself and frames Cobb as the murderer, so he'll have to leave to the real world with her. Obviously, since it's real, Cobb has to flee imprisonment until Saito comes along. Even after the fact, Maul still haunts him constantly. He carries the burden of guilt wherever he goes, and it seeps into the shared dreams. Cobb even puts himself to sleep to spend time with her in his dreams, and recreates memories they had together, to Ariadne's disgust. By the end, Dom learns to give up what's fake in order to complete the mission and be with what's real. Because Cobb keeps inserting a projection of Maul into the shared dreams, he takes serious precautions against her. Like, he doesn't allow himself to be the architect, because then Maul would also know the layout of the dream. And let's just say, she's not the nicest of people to bring along. Dom's projection of Maul keeps trying to murder everyone, and exposes him in the beginning to Saito, as they try to perform extraction. I mean, she's still not as cruel to Leo as Rose in Titanic. Come on, at least Maul didn't let him freeze to death. So, throughout all these layers, what is Inception trying to say? Well, one major theme in Inception is the concept of reality. This comes up in many different ways. The characters in the movie try to convince people that what's fake is actually real, so only they know they're in a dream. Many times, people are unsure of what reality is and are unaware that everything around them is simply a facade. Mal is the extreme of this. She mixes up the real and dream worlds and has lost all grasp on reality. Everything she believes to be real is a lie, and she's convinced that reality is fake. Saito, on the other hand, lives in limbo for what he perceives to be decades, so it's basically become his world, but still remembers the difference between the two worlds and willingly goes back to what he knows to be real. Also remember Eames? His role is not only to do a character study on the subject, but to take on the role of someone else. He uses people's perceptions of reality to extract vital information, like when he played Robert's godfather Peter. Then there's the ending. When Cobb is able to return to his children in America and see their faces again, he spins his totem one last time to decipher whether he's dreaming or not, but he doesn't care. Earlier in the film, he spins the totem with a gun in his hand to make sure that he isn't dreaming. If he is, then he'd kill himself and wake up in reality. But this time, whether or not this world is real, he's happy and chooses to accept it no matter what. That reality is his reality, whether or not it's real. Whether it's a dream or not is left up to the viewer in this fantastic final shot that focuses on the spinning totem. Whether or not it stops determines the answer, but we never get to see. What we see in Inception can apply to real life too. Some people seem to be in touch with reality and can tell what's real or fake, but others seem to blind themselves to reality in order to believe their own, or as the great Adam Savage put it,
I reject your reality and substitute my own.
Even if you try to decipher for someone what's real or fake, they can still choose to believe what they want to, or maybe they're so far gone that they truly believe in what's fake. Another interesting piece to Inception is how it compares dreams to films themselves. A film creates its own world with the goal of sucking us into it so much that we forget we're just sitting at a theater or on a couch. Each setting has its own architectural styles, inhabitants, creatures, transportation, and all these little details. Even if everything we see is fictional, we still go with it as long as the immersion isn't broken. Sort of like a dream. As long as everything remains consistent, then everything fictional will be accepted as just part of the world. And Inception points out that in a dream, everything starts at a random point. You never know exactly how you got there, you just accept that you're in the current setting. The same thing with movie scenes. We never see characters walk from place to place or manage their day-to-day lives. We just start each new scene without questioning these things. Like, we don't need to see our characters go to the bathroom or file taxes, we just assume they did. Another parallel between movies and dreams is the passage of time. Again, 1 hour of the dream is really only 5 minutes in real life according to the logic of Inception. When we're watching a movie, time feels almost warped for us. What could actually be as long as 2 hours only feels like 10 minutes, or maybe it'll drag really hard and feel like 10 hours. Key elements into creating a great movie is to have these commonalities with dreams. If you don't buy the setting, if the movie has you questioning how things happen and makes you feel like you don't have enough information, and if the movie feels as long as it is, then you're probably not going to enjoy it. Inception realizes these similarities and explores them to provide a very inward-looking experience as it's a movie itself. And yes, Inception itself checks all these boxes. Inception isn't only thought-provoking, but it's also a fun watch with plenty of fantastic scenes displaying the characters and action. Since a lot of what goes on in the film is abstract, there are a lot of cool and boggling visuals like all the dunking scenes, the city bending, and the anti-gravity scenes. And when these visuals correspond with the action, it creates some unforgettable sequences. One of the most memorable of these is the hallway fight scene with Arthur and one of Fisher's armed projections. In a completely practically made scene, the two fight in a hallway in a dream within a dream. Because the characters in the first level of dreams are in free fall, in the next layer, there's no gravity. So they run up the walls and on the ceiling as they fight each other. It's really cool and contributes to the awesome climax of the film. Like I previously mentioned, there are 3 layers of the protagonists trying to survive as Fisher's armed projections come after them. The top dream being a car chase through a city in the rain, the second at a hotel, and the third at a fortress on snowy mountaintops. The film gets really intense and the music is extremely effective. I'd be crazy if I didn't mention Hans Zimmer's fantastic score for Inception. Out of all of Nolan's films he composed for, this is probably one of his best works. Time especially is great. It can make anything dramatic and inspirational. Don't believe me? Just listen to it. See, literally anything can become the most inspirational scene ever. So what happens when you put the brilliant score with an already brilliant movie? Magic. That's what happens. Inception is such an awesome heist movie and will keep you on the edge of your seat the whole time. I can see why this script took Nolan literally 6 years to write. There's a lot to unpack here, even when I'm still simplifying everything. Inception is an awesome movie, definitely one of Nolan's best, and I can't believe it's taken Leo this long to finally win an Oscar. He's great in this. But overall, what makes Inception such a remarkable film are the memorable and fun characters, a crazy antagonist, one of the most thrilling heists in cinema, abstract visuals, unique action set pieces, an awesome soundtrack, creative themes about reality, and thoughtful comparisons between dreams and cinema, and it made the popular. Is it mind-numbing in a good way? Yes. I appreciate a thoughtful and insightful movie over brain-dead entertainment that has managed to plague the industry. Like any Nolan movie should, Inception keeps you thinking about it for days after watching it, and it only gets better with each viewing. And that is why Inception is one of my favorite things.